Hello, everyone. Welcome to Relative Pitch, episode 4, Wagnerism, Tristan Chord. My name is Anthony Morris, and I'm joined with Lauren Green and Michael Brown. Today, we'll be discussing chapter 2 of Alex Ross's Wagnerism. We're so excited of the warm reception we are getting so far for our podcast, and we would love for you to join in with us on all of our social media. So drop a comment, like, subscribe, all of the love. We would love to hear everything from you. First up, Lauren, could you just sum up just a little bit of the chapter? I know it was a very large chapter, but could you just sum up just a little bit for us?
Yeah, this is a pretty hefty chapter. And so, yeah, like the chapter is titled, it's the Tristan Chord. It's not just about that, though, but there are some talks about what the Tristan Chord is, and we'll actually play that a little bit later and talk about it. But really, this chapter just discusses the tension surrounding Wagner's Paris life due to like the tense political climate between France and Germany during the 19th century. There were constant rises and falls throughout this period for Wagner and his work. And there were also tensions between the revolutionaries and those who wanted to bring back the Bourbon monarchy, if you have any idea of like history and everything that was happening during this time. So really it was like a modernist versus traditionalist standpoint of a lot of art and things happening just in culture and politics in the world. And also like near the end, there's a pretty in-depth discussion about the surge of Wagner's work among French poets, writers, and painters when he was alive and also after his death. So yeah, that's kind of what the chapter encapsulates. So we're going to break that down a little bit more. Michael's going to give us a brief summary of what the opera Tristan and Isolde is for anyone who has never heard of it. He's going to let us know what it's about.
So if you have your trusty dusty book available, we're going to be looking at page 66 at the top. To prepare his listeners, Wagner wrote a program note in which he laid out the rudiments of the story. Tristan, the nephew of King Mark of Cornwall, is sailing from Ireland with Princess Isolde, who has been betrothed to Mark as part of a political bargain. Isolde is enraged because this same Tristan killed her fiancé in battle. That's devastation. During the voyage, she asked Bangrang, her attendant, to prepare a death potion, which she and Tristan will drink together. Bangrang, unwilling to part with her mistress, serves a love potion instead. Spicy. The prelude gives a preview of the music that accompanies the drinking of the pither, but it stands as an independent orchestral statement in which we hear. And just for everybody to know, I'm not the best reader. I understand, but I can read trumpet, so that's all that matters.
Yeah, it was fun. I really felt like I was in church and you were the preacher. And we were supposed to be reading our Bible.
Hey, let's pull out your Bibles.
Pull it out, go to Revelation chapter 12, verse 19. That's really how I felt while you were reading that. And just like a preacher.
It is a Sunday.
It is a Sunday. It is a Sunday. So thank you, Michael. Thank you. I did want to comment on one thing about what you just read was program notes. So really before this period, so Wagnerism, for those who are not musicians, comes from the musical era of the Romantic period. So this is the period where concerts really started to, kind of have a take on, especially big operas. And so program notes are basically where the composer or the conductor would basically sum up the song or piece, whatever, into a program that you get. And Wagner, as we talked about in previous episodes with the Beirut Festival of Turning Down the Lights, he was also one of the first ones to actually have a story for it and put it in the program so that, listeners would know what's going on. Because I'm pretty sure if you were to go to an opera right now, you would not know what in the world they're saying, what's going on, because it's in a language that you have no idea. Luckily, there's program notes to tell you, exactly what's going, act by act, scene by scene, to let you know what's going on. So this was kind of a big innovation for this period to get that way. And I was very, very, very excited to see that this is going on right now.
Yeah, and so Tristan and Isolde is very complicated, right? Already from the jump, it's like, oh, this is supposed to be a death potion, but now it's like a love potion. And so there's actually within it, they kind of talk about this a good amount within it, like the whole love death. I think it's like Liebestod is the word that they use within it to describe love death. Or some people think it should be death love because that's what it was, but really it's their love that caused their death at the end. Even though it wasn't natural, it was a potion. It's like unnatural Romeo and Juliet. Like they're not
very cliche.
Very cliche of like, oh, now that he's dead, I automatically just die. Like, no, that doesn't happen. We know that doesn't actually happen. But it's Wagner, it's dramatic, it's, all this fun stuff. So I kind of saw that Romeo and Juliet aspect because, Romeo and Juliet she thinks he's dead and she dies and he wakes back up, he dies, but really they just both die. And so it's a very dramatic, super overly expressionate work, truly. And so there's a chord within it. So breaking down, let's just get back to the root of what this chapter is about. There's a Tristan chord. It literally is called a Tristan chord, which it actually is just, what is it? Is it a raised seventh? Or
I think
chord?
it's just a dominant seventh.
Dominant seventh.
With the seventh in the root, to be completely honest.
And so, Anthony, you want to show us like what that looks and sounds like?
Yes, I will. Give me 1 second. And
also, he describes it as an ambiguous, half diminished seventh chord for anyone who wants to know.
So here is the opening for Tristan, and you'll see on the screen where the Tristan chord actually happens. So right there, you see it marked in the yellow. I think me and Lauren, we were saying like, it's like you have to put your shoulder in it, like you just kind of got to put it in there. It's like, ooh, that was something spicy a little bit, which was very, very crazy. I want to play it one more time. So this time I want you to now put your shoulder into it. Like actually, while you're listening, go ahead and give a little nudge when it gets there. So I'll play it one more time for everybody. Yeah. And then at the end, it kind of has like this resolution at the end, which really kind of sums up the whole Tristan.
Yeah, this is so it's funny because there's some people who are like, this is absolutely one of the craziest chords, like, just amazing. But then someone in the book actually is just like, this is really just a half diminished seventh chord. And they said it's really not extraordinary, but it's the environment that it was created around that is. So that scene, like, or that moment is just like Anthony said, the shoulder, it just is like like it's almost like an ethereal sigh to it, that it's what is around it that makes it so special, in contrast to, it's like very dreamlike and almost like you're like in a daze. And so actually this chord too, anyone knows the piece of Prelude to Dancing Fawn, Debussy, there's a huge flute solo, hey, shout out flutist, that happens at the beginning of that. And then what comes immediately after that first solo? Tristan chord. And it's the same exact effect that it has in this scene here, where it's just so like, Tristan Chord. And it's just like, oh, the goosebumps in the horn. So good. So yeah, it's like Wagner knew exactly where to place that chord, where it would actually mean something, right? Because sometimes a chord is just a chord. It's like, oh, that's just fine. But then when you actually place it where it's supposed, like where it has the most like meaning and substance and content, yeah, that's why this was kind of like a freak out moment for a lot of people in history.
One thing I love about Wagner is the way he orchestrates a lot of things and the music that he makes. In the book, it says, with such minute variation, Wagner captures the texture of unconsciousness and like dreaming states. Um, in every one of his pieces, and if you go and look up how long Tristan is the opera, it's like 3-4 hours long. If you were to go listen to the entire ring cycle, you're going to be listening for almost a full day. Like, there's a lot of things, but what I love is that every minute is different. Every minute there's so much variation that he does. And I've always loved that about him. I remember I said my favorite song is Elsa's. The way it starts is it's very minute. There are changes, and that's what makes it more interesting. As it just gets, as it keeps going, it just gets louder and louder. It starts to progress. It actually really becomes more grand, like, and he uses minute variations like changing the key, putting the main theme into a different instrument. Just those little things that you don't necessarily think about really kind of change how you are as a listener. Like how I'm listening to it, I'm like, wait, something is different, but it's the same. Now you're freaking with my mind. So Wagner really, he could be a witch doctor. He's playing with your mind right now. He really is playing with your mind. And I think that's what makes him very special when it comes to music, is because people, I don't know if composers really tapped into that before him. And that's why he sticks out so much in history, is because he's like, look, I'm writing 6-hour long stuff. People still need to be engaged into every minute of it. And he really, really championed that. And of course, there's people after him who is taking on that same thing. It's like Lauren said with Debussy, using that same chord to get the same effect. So people are using his tactics now further on down the line.
Yeah, I mean, who else would put that chord, not even 3 measures, into a piece? Like, you have no idea what's going on, and you get hit with that. Like, bam. And everybody's like, wait, what, huh? And I think because where he placed it was what made it so like, oh my God. Like it says in the book, more words have been spilled about the first 3 bars of Tristan, a rising minor sixth in the cellos, a semitone descent, a pungent chord of cellos and winds, than about any other short passages in music, with the possible exception of the opening notes of Beethoven's Fifth. Like the beginning, he was like, boom, here you go, take it. And I don't care how you feel about it, but you're going to hear my chord and you're going to remember my chord.
Yeah, and so going back to like what Anthony was saying about, I think, and we also talked about in our last Wagnerism episode with Rheingold, this idea of the leitmotifs, and like I really believe I figured out why Wagner didn't like that term in this, and it's because I forgot who it was in the book that talked about how it's endless melody. Like Wagner is just endless melody, and what connects this endless melody are the leitmotifs. And so I think for him, it was like, why are you chunking up my seamless work whenever it all kind of comes together in this kind of big, glorious production? But for us as listeners, obviously there are going to be things that stick out more to us than others. But that was a term in here that I really like, endless melody. Because sometimes, have you ever listened to like a song or a piece and some things sound like filler? Like there was, let me split a little bit, because they have like the segments, but they don't have the transitions. It's like, no, he's like, no, none of this is a transition. This is all like in itself one super long melody. So yeah, with all of this, and Tristan is older, like I said, we kind of found a new age of like decadence, and what a better place to be in than France, where it's all about wine and cheese and pastries and oui baguettes. And so now, like, this is really showing a lot of what the modernists are really wanting. This like just like an indulgence of art and culture. And a lot of people felt as if Tristan and Isolde gave that Wagner's music in general was just an over romanticism of like life in general.
Talking about that decadence and really kind of being over and extra. Literally the last 40 minutes of the thing is a 40-minute duet of Tristan and Isolde having a duet about dying.
Singing for 40 minutes.
40 minutes. 40 minutes. About dying. Jesus. Like, why? Why you're about to die? You're about to spend 40 minutes dying? And not like dying like, oh, I've fallen ill or I have this disease or whatever. No, you're dying of a heartbreak. 40 minutes to die of a heartbreak. But you know what? This isn't a Wagner thing. I think Wagner really kind of multiplied it to be 40 minutes long. But since opera has even been a thing, it has been extra. I was teaching my music appreciation class about Dido and Aeneas from the Baroque period, where literally Dido, her last lament is about 7 minutes long and is about her lamenting. She's about to die and of a heartbreak. See the parallels here? Heartbreak, dying 7 minutes. Heartbreak, dying duet now 40 minutes long. So it's the opera genre has always, I love to say opera is what soap operas are to us. How they're just like, how can so-and-so be dead for 26 years in a coma, or it's supposed to be in a coma, and then 26 years later, he's now out of a coma. How, in what world does that make sense? Who knows? But in the world of soap opera, it works. So in the world of opera, saying I'm about to die because you broke my heart for 40 minutes, that's normal. So if you're ever looking at that, be aware of that. That's what they're doing, okay? Be aware. But it's extra. But it's decadent.
When you were saying that, Anthony, you know what it just related back to me?
What?
How overly dramatic high school is.
High school.
Like how overly, everything is over dramatic. Like, oh my God, he did not text me back today. Like, can you believe the audacity of him not texting me back? Me? Like, that is like, when you were just explaining how like long everything takes, I'm like, y'all, this give me flashbacks to high school.
You know that the people during the 1800s were basically high schoolers. Like, did they live past age of 30?
Except for Wagner, he was a genius.
He was a high schooler. He was a high schooler that was put on a pedestal. So instead of, doing something actually maturing, he wanted to turn to his operas and be childlike. That's my opinion, and I stick to it. But I'm serious. I mean, look at his operas. They are so melodramatic. Like, it's like a high school girl going through her first breakup. Like, why are you doing this? Why, my good sis? Why?
# original High School Musical.
We love it. We love it.
We did not love to see it. So the reviews of this was very mixed. You had, the modernists, like I said, who were just all for the decadence and over romanticism, the dramatics were just like, this is amazing. Like, we have to worship this. And then you have people like Berlioz, who literally said it's a sort of chromatic moaning. And I was like, now, and that could go a few ways. So this overindulgence has a little bit of a sensual background too. And Alex Ross makes it very clear in here that a lot of people find there are a lot of parts in this where it's like sighs and just like, yeah, like a moaning, things like this, where it's just overindulgence. Like, oh, it's like you have the best piece of death by chocolate. What are you gonna do? Oh, that was amazing. Like, it's just like that just blow your mind, like, wow factor. And so his review can be taken a few ways, but basically there was a very split difference of opinion between like of when this came out or when this was finally premiered. And like I said, it was a thing that was kind of happening between the modernists and the traditionists. And basically during this time, Wagner is really French. He kind of becomes French, and he develops a cult. And that's something that I know Michael wants to talk about, kind of the formation of this newly found followers of Wagner and his artistry has come now during this time.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it was the last chapter we also talked about it, or the intro. I think we talked about how he has this huge followings just from random places. And this whole pre-concert, or his concert he gave in 1860 of all these works, it was a prelude to Tristan. It was selections from the Flying Dutchman, Tannhauser, and Lohengrin. This kind of like, in some people's eyes, reignited a love and passion for art and creativity in France. So after this happened, everybody's just giving Wagner all the credit. It's like when you go to a master class and someone fixes this little tiny thing and you just give them all the credit, like, oh my God, thank you. So like that's kind of what's happening right now. And a cult developed around that and just following Wagner and just being like, Wagner is it. Like that, Wagner is it. And what's funny about it though, this pre-concert happened in 1860. The full production of Tristan and Isolde did not occur until 1904. So that makes me question, if it was really it, why did they wait all that time to have a full production of Tristan?
And, you know, I think in here as well, it shows that Lohengrin, which was written in 1848, didn't get a full stage until 1887. So I don't really necessarily think this was about the merit of the opera itself, but the tensions, political tensions that were happening between after the Franco-Prussian War and all the politics that were happening. Napoleon, was it third? Who came into power at the point. So it was the country was pretty split, very politically split at the time. So I feel like they couldn't get through some of the full stagings. Like there would be too much, and I know you're going to talk about that as well. Like why maybe not they could have been staged.
I don't know. Like I was like thinking about it because like Tannhauser was performed the next year, but like Tristan was waited so much, and because Tristan and Tannhauser are a little bit different. Tristan, you're waiting a long time. It's like you're like somewhere waiting a long time for something. I don't know. I was going to come up with something and nothing came to my mind. I was going to
the DMV.
What do you say?
The DMV.
The DMV.
Oh, the DMV. Well, I've never had a long time in the DMV. I'm just lucky. I look good.
Voting. Go vote.
Go vote.
Vote. Turn in your absentee ballots. Go vote.
There you go. We have to put our hashtag vote in every episode, okay?
Hashtag. But I mean, I'm gonna. What's next on our little docket?
Oh yeah. Well, do we want to? Yeah. Let's talk about the writing and the things that kind of happened during. Again, why some of these full productions may not have happened during this time.
Honestly, I feel like these people are just writing at every single thing. I mean, literally, when we talk about anything in music history, if it is out of the ordinary, they're writing. Think about Stravinsky's Rite of Spring. What in the world was so wrong with that? They just want to throw tomatoes. What is wrong with Townhouse? Like, I feel like people want to just complain about something that is out of the ordinary, especially with a more conservative background and everything. Like, if you do you, but I, I think they had a preconceived notion of what the music was going to be, and it wasn't like what they thought it was going to be. So guess what? I'm finna go to whoever this guy to my left. I'm gonna just knock him right in his eyeball. That's it. Period. That's it. And I'm like, because I don't know. I've been studying music history a lot, and every single composer that we talk about, some writing happens. And in French, they probably just maybe swung and did like a love tap or something. It wasn't like hard Germanic type of thing. But I don't know. The whole rioting after, because the Tannhauser scandal, dealing with Napoleon, because Napoleon originally wanted to have Tannhauser performed in France. And we're talking about Napoleon III, not Napoleon Bonaparte, okay? Napoleon number 3. Because he was just crowned king of France. And basically what happened, in the production, they had jockeys to be performers, but the jockeys were a part of a more conservative group, and they didn't really care for Napoleon. They had already wanted to really kind of destroy the whole scene, destroy the whole production, in which they end up doing it. And honestly, Wagner was very upset. He was like, I'm never doing this again. I don't want to come to France. I don't really like y'all. Y'all is not messing with me. I'm not messing with you. Next subject. And that invokes a riot. But what I got was a little bit before that. Wagner really did he hosted salons. So salons are basically what we would call dinner parties, basically nowadays, where you would invite, let me make sure I have everything correct. He basically invited a lot of people from the upper court. So it says he began hosting a salon on Wednesdays, which is a weird day, inviting not only Republicans, but also legitimists and members of the Imperial Circle. So this was something of him trying to, rub shoulders with the right people, to get them to really kind of buy into his new production. And I look at this like right now with the presidential election, of how so many people are going to different dinner parties and different campaigns and everything, and really just trying to get everyone to buy into what they're selling. And so did Wagner's work or did it not work? What do y'all think? Did he do enough rubbing shoulders with the people of France? Because, I mean, they didn't like him at the beginning. They kind of liked him in the middle. He did eventually have a cult. So what do y'all think?
I think it's hard to, because like I said, the country just was so split, just like right now. And, seems like it was a time where you were just right or you were just wrong, and there were always going to be people who oppose the change of music. If we think about it, because I remember reading a segment, one of Bach's sons at the end of his life was really embarrassed to be seen with him because he kept writing in the Baroque style, whereas people had just, moved on towards the classical period. And so there's always going to be some rub tension whenever you are going through different time periods. And, it wasn't just like it turned 1650 and people were like, oh, Bach's dead, Baroque is done. I mean, kind of, maybe it was, because that makes sense. But it's a gradual thing where there's some people who oppose it, some people who are like, oh, we're all for this. Like, we got to move forward. And so the same thing was kind of happening here, where this new style, to some people, like, what are you doing? Because it was not only, they were not only going through a cultural and art shift, they were going through a full, political change. Things were happening. Things were, just completely changing. So he may have done all he could. Maybe he did do enough. We would never know. But we knew that it wasn't going to be easy for him, regardless of whatever the outcome was going to be. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I think Wagner paid a price. You always got to pay a price of admission. That's the saying goes, gotta pay your dues. Hashtag long tone tax for brass players. I mean, I think he paid his price and he was eventually there because he started getting programmed for concerts. I mean, eventually he had the full Tristan full production in 1904, but he had to pay some sort of price and had to rub some shoulders, shake some baby, kiss some hands.
I think you got that mixed up. Maybe just a tad. I think you got that mixed up. Okay.
You know, I realized I made a mistake, but I was like, let me go ahead and finish this out. I can't decommit.
At least you committed to that.
I committed to the end. Like Wagner committed to the end because he was going to have his music played.
But the thing is, you said until 1904. That was like for what,
40 something years?
Yeah.
After his pre-concert?
Well, no, like after he's dead. Like, homie is dead until his full deceased. Until his full production. So I mean, I guess get your post deceasal kudos, I guess.
I mean Bach's resurgence, Baroque's resurgence. So sometimes you got to die for it to become really famous.
I mean,
oh my gosh,
music do.
That is literally so. There's a quote in here because he mentioned how once Wagner actually passed, that's when a lot of his music started. There was a resurgence of his music, and there is literally a Tchaikovsky quote saying, "It is necessary to die in order to attract their attention," and I was like, "That's shady."
I mean, but we've seen it in history. I mean, think about so Alex Ross' his, I think, first book, The Rest is Noise, where we talk about Mahler and Strauss. And Lauren, I think it was Strauss who didn't receive a lot of recognition until he was dead. And then people started to really like, ooh, same thing with Bach. He really didn't have a lot of followers then.
Bach was poor. Bach was very poor. He had too many kids.
His son,
it was hard.
CPE Bach, which is one of his kids, was more famous during the time than his father, who we to this day claim to be like a master. But he didn't gain that notoriety until hundreds of years after he was dead. So I mean, still, I guess kudos to Wagner because his music did really, really become a hold then. But he was still popular during his time as well, though.
I mean, we can relate this to like recent years. I mean, yes, Michael Jackson and Prince were both famous while they were living, but the minute they died, the amount, like I remember when Michael Jackson died, I never listened to his music before. I mean, besides Beat It, like I listened to that. But when he died, I like bought like 5 albums and I was like crying. And I'm like, I didn't know this man. I didn't even listen to his like music before he died, but the minute he died, I became a complete and total fan. Same thing with Prince, like absolutely same thing. And I was like, this is like literally the same as like past. Like people can bring that history repeats itself. It's always going to repeat itself because that's how history is.
It does.
Like we see this with so many different things, especially this.
And for the wind band world, a couple years ago, David Maslanka, he just passed, and a lot of people started to do a lot of his works. I mean, KSU Chamber Singers, we did his Litany for Courage of Singers. A lot of bands did Symphony No. 4 and a lot of his symphonies, and some of his other works that people don't know as well. So that's what happens is usually death. And my grandma, I was literally, because today what we're filming is my birthday. She was telling me, she was like, I have friends that call and I just brag on you all the time. And she's probably like, they're probably thinking like, oh, why is she always talking about him? And she said to me, you should give props to the people while they're on this side of the earth and on the other side of the earth.
Okay. I have, you said exactly what I was just about to like give y'all, like just give me your opinions on this. So we are having this talk right now about how it seems as if people have to die for them to be significant, right? Every now and then you'll get a Telemon who marries a princess and they have money, and then that just happens because you have the money, you can do all these concerts, people know you, you're famous, right? Is that maybe the reason as to why music, specifically the classical music field, we're always playing things by dead composers? Because if you think about it, it's like, oh, okay, so now these sets of people just died. Let's play all their music. Okay, now these sets of people just died. Let's play their music. That is why we are in this constant cycle of just playing the same music that has already been done, is because we're always stuck in the past. And this is a debate. I mean, I'm sure we're gonna have an episode later on to talk more about this, but this is kind of confirming that it's really the reason as to why people get popular after death. It's because you don't pay attention to them when they're alive, or maybe you don't give enough attention. They don't get their the actual magnitude of their art isn't present until they are on the other side.
Yeah. I mean, I think you hit it on the nail. We are in a constant struggle right now of new music, no new music. Oh, this person is dead. This is why. It feels like we're always trying to play catch up. And it's like, all right, we're this person, so we need to do this, instead of focusing on the people who are composing right now as we speak. We are not giving them their roses, their flowers right now. But I hate to say it, I'm pretty sure once they have left on and processed on to the next level, then their music is gonna be like, oh my gosh, their music is so good. My question is, why didn't you think so when they were here? Whether one, instead of guessing about their music, they can actually give you like, I meant this when I wrote this. Instead of now having this whole conspiracy theory, oh, maybe this was supposed to be like this. Ask me now. I'd rather ask a person right now in your face, what do you mean about this part of your music? Let me know so I can better do your music.
And I know I'm one of the worst about this with solo repertoire and chamber repertoire. I mean, we talked about this last week. And like, I made a mission for myself in my master's recital. I'm only going to perform works written in the past 20, 30 years. Like, hopefully alive composers, hopefully. But I mean, what I also noticed with this, we were talking about it, is when bands, especially in orchestras, we get in this cycle every once in a while. Like, of course, we're like, when people recently pass, we play their music, but also we have this cycle of these war horses. Like, everybody does this war horse in 1 year, or the next one person will do it, and then the next year everybody's going to do it. I think everything's happening in cycles. History repeats itself. We need to break it. Yes, we can still perform the war horses, but put them on like a 10-year cycle or a 5-year cycle. You know what I mean? New music is what we're doing. And I mean, Wagner was new music, and France started doing stuff right after that. You know what I mean? So, I mean, tangent, but it's relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we kind of see this, and of course, you know, in Wagner's case, his music, because of who he was political. It was political. So maybe it took time for it to be okay for his work to be like, you know, done, like produced or done, having productions up. And so, but at the same time, think about it now. Think about modern artists who have done an oopsie. Is their music still out there? Is there, are there shows and films still out there?
Yes, it is.
So
Yes,
have we just become like to the point where kind of like, well, they're gonna be crappy people in the world, but should we lose our Netflix show because of it? Should I lose my, did I say it? I said it. Should I lose the favorite production of my favorite opera because of it? Should I lose my favorite recordings for my favorite symphonies because of it? And some people are gonna be like, no, absolutely not. And and other people are gonna be like, bye. Yeah, exactly. And he's like, skirt, skirt.
I like, from the beginning, I don't have much tolerance, and this is where I become a contradiction with Wagner. And I would claim I contradict hypocrite. I'll claim that because there's a person who has a show. It's his name, but a little version of it, a little, little boy. And he has some very great shows. Had a Little Family, doctor, lawyer. Michael, you got it right then and there. He's currently sitting in prison right now for a lot of things that he's done. I personally have not watched his shows because the thing is, knowing all of that stuff, and then I think my thing with nowadays is that we have seen these people who have these instances with that person. Same thing with another, this time a singer who was very popular in the 90s and early 2000s, stepping in something. Music, before I used to listen to it, but now, especially with the Me Too movement and everything, I cannot bring myself to listen to that music. And with Wagner, we hear all these things and we know these things, and that is my question. Will I walk away from Wagner? Maybe. Honestly, here's the real tea. If Michael keeps making me mad about these things, yes, I will walk away from Wagner, because it's always a debate between me and Michael, okay? Because he does not believe in canceling a person based off of like their stuff. I'm sorry, when I cancel you, you're gone. So Michael's gonna make me mad, and then I'm like, F Wagner, I'm not coming back. Bye-bye. Elsa's, you can come off of my wall. I don't want to see you because Michael made me that mad. It's his followers. That's the team.
Well, so I don't know how it is on y'all's screen that you're going to be watching, but it's very awesome how Anthony's on one side, I'm on the other side, and Lauren's in the middle, because that's literally how it is. Like, in everything we're going to talk about in this book,
I'm Switzerland.
She is Switzerland. I'm not going to change. But here's the thing I will change, and this is what we have a chance to change now. History's repeating itself multiple times in the past 20 years with popular culture artists that everybody knows. So here's our chance to change history of how we're going to, are these people still going to be looked up to in 20 years? Like, I will say the 90s, some of the best music that's popular music that's ever been written. Like 90s, if I could like listen to that music all the time, I would. But that person, I actually cut him out. It's weird. I haven't cut Wagner, but I cut that person out. You know what I mean? And the Netflix show.
Talking about the one that had the family show with the doctor and, that show. We're talking about that person?
That person and the artist.
Oh, we're talking about the artist who, mm-hmm.
Yeah, I cut both of them out. Okay. But there is one person I haven't cut out that I need to, but the show was so good. And if you know what kind of shows I like, you kind of get to reference it.
I don't think I know.
But we have a chance to change. We have a chance to change. Oh, Lauren knows what it is.
But my mom likes that show too.
Exactly. Okay, you know what? Old souls.
You still have to cut out a famous conductor.
I would never cut him. His interpretations are literally second best to none. Like, the way he interprets music, the way his mind works musically was so genius that the other half of his brain should have been cut out.
But when you are when you are using your power to harm somebody else because people like you have put you up on a pedestal, and now that it's went to your head to take advantage of a person, that right there is what makes somebody want to leave. Florida, are you proud of me how I kept it real?
I did. I was like, okay, let me pray real quick. Just hope that this doesn't
right in the middle.
explode.
Kept it in the middle. I had to think about it. I did have to think about it and pray myself, but I kept it in the middle.
And that's going to be the reoccurring, especially with this book. I mean, it says on the cover, politics. Whenever you have a politics, you know, it's going to be crazy. And that's where, like, it's hard for me to separate music, art, any art form from, like, it's easy for me, to separate art form from the person. Because in that art form, what they were doing in that moment was not what they do in their own business on the side, in my mind.
Well,
and in some people, it's different. Some people, all their life is in that art. So it's like, and that's where it, like, I mean, that same debate with music for music's sake or programmatic music. Everything goes back to these similar debates that happens. But we're having a chance right now with popular artists and cancel culture where we are canceling a lot of these people. And we are making rights where we used to make the wrongs.
Yes. And I really, my biggest thing is hold these people accountable. Do not put these people on a pedestal and then let them get away with murder. This is not how to get away with murder with Annalise Keating. So that is my thing, and that I think that's what makes me mad with all of this is that we have put people on certain pedestals and we're like, no one can ever touch you. You are just so good at what you do, so we're not going to even turn. And with the conductor, with the artist, with the actor, they were part of bigger label, bigger network, bigger orchestra, who turned their backs to this because they knew what was going on. And that's where it gets really very messy and it gets very angry. And it goes back to Wagner of these people knew. They knew what was going on. Instead, they turned their backs of like, well, as long as you make 4 hours worth of great music with good melodies and a good old shoulder nod, we're going to just keep you going and keep you doing things. So I don't know. It's really messy and it's very convoluted, and it will always be. That'll be like a big debate until the end of time, because I don't think we'll, as human beings, will ever
or humans
cut it and know.
And I mean, this is a great segue into Baudelaire, how you pronounce it, whatever. I'm not French. He put Wagner on this pedestal, even though they were completely different people. And I will let you read it for your own sake, because some of this stuff I really don't feel like saying in front of, hopefully we have younger audiences, and I really don't feel like saying this in front of them. But it's on page 79. If you want to read it, it's at the top.
I'm a PG it. Okay, I'm a PG.
Okay, you PG it, and you will take it over.
Okay, so basically Baudelaire, he was a French person, and he was very known for his he was a poet, and he was known for his dark ways, okay? So very different from Wagner. He worshipped Satan. He was a Satanist. He did a lot of things on that side, okay? So, in this little sentence right here, it says, Baudelaire early and frequent encounters with people of the night probably gave him some type of a disease that was linked to his early death. For my older thinkers, you know what the ladies of the night are. You know what disease I'm talking about. So he was definitely a worldly man, to say that. He was definitely a worldly man. And what was very interesting to see is that he idolized Wagner to the point of, some would say he loved Wagner. Literally at the bottom of 79, it says, indeed, he metaphorically placed himself in a passive sexual role. He wrote a whole letter to Wagner, and where he honestly kind of confessed his love for Wagner. And to my finding, Wagner was delighted by this. So that tells me a lot of things. That one, Wagner he knew he was the head one. He knew for a fact. He's like, excuse me, dust off of my shoulder. I know who I am. Thank you very much. I'm so glad that you were flattered by me. But here is a soul, Baudelaire, that is like professing his love for his music, for everything. Baudelaire said that Wagner music is true music that evokes analogs, ideas, and different brains. So saying like Wagner's music in every section of your brain, some people say right brain, left brain, this part of your brain does this. He's saying that his music fits in every single section of your brain and will evoke something. No matter what it is, it will evoke something. And that is how just entranced he was of Wagner, which is very interesting.
Yeah, and there was kind of a whole, like, a club, basically, or a cult, if you want to call it that really praised Wagner to, to the just kind of crazy point, honestly. And I think there was a quote in there that said, the very man, describing Wagner, the very man of whom we have dreamed, he is a genius, such as appears upon the earth once every 1,000 years. Okay? It's a pretty huge statement to say that you are almost a messiah of the world, of civilization. And so these are people, like I said, poets, writers, painters, just all these different artists who kind of came together and really just loved Wagner. They just really did worship him for who he was, his art. So he definitely had a huge influence over art during this time period, and not just music, but art in general during this time period, which I think is like easy to say, of course. And so there was actually a periodical called The Review, Revue, I believe is what it was called, where these artists would write pieces and that were basically glorification of Wagner, that style. Think about that. Think of someone, I just was like, I'm going to start a periodical about Anthony. And every week you're going to get poems and writings and essays about his artistry, as he deserves, his artistry and his works, who he is as a person. So this is a traditional fan club. This is a huge, these are not Swifters, not Selenators, but Wagnerites. These are really Wagnerites.
Like the literally 1800 version of the Beehive, honestly.
Yes, exactly. The Beehive, exactly. And so,
I have a question.
Yes.
For people who don't know what the Beehive is, what is the Beehive?
Are you serious?
I'm an old soul.
Michael, are you asking for yourself?
Yes. Yes.
Wait, pause. Emergency meeting.
He has lived with me for 2 years.
Am I being sus right now?
You are being sus. There's a new, sorry for anyone who doesn't get these pop culture references. There's a new game called Among Us. It's sweeping the nation, all the tweens and Gen Zs.
It'll be gone in 10 days.
All of my kids play it on, at school, and I'm like, oh my gosh, get off your phone.
So what is the Beehive for people who don't know?
Is a collection of all of us who worship Beyonce. Thank you.
The Beehive.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Everyone knows this. Literally.
No, not everybody. No, I will, in fact, tell you not everybody.
Okay, well, I want you to, let's start a poll. Who knows what the Beehive is? Because you know what? Wagner.
You know how many people are going to lie on that?
Don't lie.
I don't think people would lie, because I'm pretty sure people know what the Beehive is. Just like, what is Taylor Swift's group? Swifters, what are they?
The Swifters and Selena Gomez is like Seleninator or
Never heard of any of these.
Believers.
Yeah,
Oh, I know the Believers. I was a
And
believer.
Rihanna's like the
Michael, you're showing your true colors right now.
Yeah. Like you really are showing your true colors.
That was like middle school. I was a believer. I grew out of it. But no, I've never heard of the Beehive.
Yes, you have.
Michael's like the old dad of our group.
The thing is,
I'm the
Michael lived with me 2 years. He's literally heard me talk about the evolution of Beyonce. He just called me about doing a project on Beyonce. You didn't do your research, did you?
I don't see no scholarly articles about the Beehive. Well, I'm just saying, for people who don't know, so now I can equate. You know, you have to explain stuff to me in like musical terms. So Wagnerites is the Beehive. Okay, I got it.
But people know who the Beehive is. I mean,
No,
we
they
have
don't.
been standing strong for the past 23 years.
So yes, all of this to say, all of that to say, that basically Wagner now has a very huge fan club within France that kind of do his bidding for him, you know, and they're very passionate because they're artists, and they're all about going back to decadence. They are all about this new age of just expressionism and indulgence and just completely giving in to what you desire. Whereas traditionalists, that's not their thing at all. They have a way of doing things, and that's kind of what they want to stick to. And so that's kind of the last half of that chapter is really talking about his involvement, or not his involvement with the review, but his followers and their how they worshipped him and all these things. And so,
can I quickly just show this picture about someone drew about Wagner? Because I would not like this to be painted about me. Y'all see that? He looked like a square head.
That's an ugly picture.
He looked like a square head. What? Who look like that? People, no one look like that. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Spotify or Apple Music, please go to our YouTube. Please subscribe and leave us a comment because we love hearing that. But no one, if someone painted a picture of me of that, I would very politely, give it back to them and be like, hey, I love you, but could you square up my face? Like, give me some cheekbones, give me some, not just square.
Called fan mail. I mean, it's their interpretation, okay? So let them be artists and let them do what
here, for anyone who wants to know, this is what he actually looked like, an actual portrait.
I have a kid who, if I would have
look at that.
If I would have showed this picture, he would have immediately said something about his
that looks more like Mozart than Wagner in that picture.
All I know is it's like a 6 head.
Yeah,
on top.
I'm telling you.
With the Terminator jaw.
It's bad. But again, that goes back to the group. I'm pretty sure Beyonce have received a lot of fan mail of herself painted by whoever that it doesn't even. I mean, go Google Beyonce Madame Tussauds. That looks nothing like Beyonce. Nothing at all. So this picture. Oh, you're looking up right now, Michael, aren't you? I can see it. I just see it written all over your face.
Who's the artist? By who? Beyonce by who? Who's the artist?
Oh, Madame Tussauds.
Okay.
So, but again, like this is fan mail. So people are sending all these things. Honestly, Wagner was probably the Michael Jackson of the day. Truly. Because he was that popular. They have a whole periodical, which is really just a modern day Tumblr page full of, if Tumblr's not even a thing anymore, really. But it's just a modern day type of thing where I'm just gonna send all of my things. I'm gonna write poetry, art, a song about you, how much I love you. He was really subject to all of that. And with the indulgence, that's just the way of the late 1800s of people just expressing themselves, literally putting everything on the page, not leaving out one single ounce of that entire sheet unfilled. And the same thing with Wagner's music. There is no downtime. there's always something happening, and it's always lush. It is never thin at all. And that's just how he wrote things.
And I think this kind of ties up what this chapter really is about. I mean, to name a chapter Tristan Chord, and anyone who would read this book is going to be like, all right, we know what this is going to be about, you know, because we've heard it. Like, you, at this point of where we are in our lives, in our education, you've definitely heard of the Tristan Chord. You would have definitely heard of, or Tristan and Isolde, Wagner. You definitely have heard of Wagner. And so, and Wagner honestly was lucky to have had this fan base while he was alive. That's like, and going back to what we were thinking, I don't think people like Bach had a following. Maybe he had a following, but not like a fan club like this. And so, you know, I guess it kind of shows the magnitude of his works and the effect that it has, the influence that it still has on literature, and the fact that people say nothing else will be written the way, you know, and no other chord will be analyzed, or no opening of anything will ever be talked about more than this. And we're 2020, right? So, you know, we already predicted this. We're going to be going throughout this book, going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And this chapter wasn't really about the bad. You know, this is more about really analyzing the music and the effect, how amazing the music in itself was, but also the climate that it was, you know, made in and produced in and performed in. But yeah, it was a lengthy and very interesting chapter, I believe, for all of us. And like I said, we always say when we do this, support this man. He's amazing. He is amazing. These books are just so educational, beneficial. Your mind, I feel like my brain is working 10 times harder than it normally does when I'm reading his stuff. Like, seriously, Alex Ross, if you're out there, if you're listening to this, thank you so much. This is great. It's great stuff. So seriously, like, when we talk about this, we're not like reading, we're obviously, if you want us to actually read and go through this ASMR, we are talking about doing that. But this is not what this is. It's us, you know, kind of just discussing and going back and forth with each other. But leave us comments. Let us know what you think about it. Jump into our conversation. Like, give us like an idea of what you're thinking when we're going through this, because we absolutely want to know. Absolutely want to know.
I mean, if we, like, of course, I think we mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. If we're reading through it, or you're reading the book with us or ahead of us, because, you know, I think if we kind of establish something, we do it every other week. And then we have a music topic in between. If you want to give, like, if we're about to read chapter 3, if you want to give us, like, hey, I really am interested about this section and what y'all think, please let us know, and we will make sure to spend time to talk about that. I think Junior's comment, we're going to mention it in a couple of our upcoming just music episodes. We love hearing from people, and I think we're going to release a couple of polls coming soon, because the more y'all give us, the more we want to give back, and we
absolutely
really feed off of that.
We're always ready to engage in a conversation. I mean, we are just starting, but again, like I said earlier, the amount of love that we have been receiving from this has been amazing. We are all fulfilled because this has become a family now. We love every single one of you who is watching or listening, who is liking, subscribing. Go share us, tell a friend. Please do, because we are definitely so ready for y'all to be a part of this. And just, it's a big family. We need each other as family, so come be a part of our family. We would love that. So anything else, Michael? I think we have something.
To close this episode, we're going to start a new segment, a little thing. Me and Anthony will debate on who came up with it. You know, me, he says him, you know, born Switzerland. So anyways, I want to ask Anthony and Lauren, and y'all, if y'all want to comment on this, please do, and give me more music to listen to. What have you most recently listened to, or what has been on your phone this week? Starting with Lauren.
So actually, I had just did a Target run. I've been watching a show on Netflix called Reign, Reign, and it's kind of talking about like the 1500s and like Mary Queen of Scots and like her marriage with like the King of France and all that stuff. Anyway, so there's a segment where she's like riding on a horse and it's all cute and dramatic, and the song "Wasting My Young Years" by London Grammar came on. It's just if you know Lana Del Rey and like that vibe, that's a very, yes, exactly. That's like a vibe that it was kind of giving me. And so I was like, this is a bop, you know, like this is a good driving song. So this is what the album cover looks like and everything. It's very like impressionistic and all that. It's really cool. So go check it out. "Wasting My Young Years," London Grammar.
So currently I am listening to one of my new favorite artists. His name is Duran Bernard. He just released an album, self-titled album. He is a phenomenal singer. And one of my favorite songs from that album is called Volume, featuring Kaytranada. So for those who like love R&B, who love that really type of soul, this album is what you need. Fun thing about Duran, he started singing backup for Erykah Badu, which I love me some Erykah Badu. He is sang with literally everyone, just the runs, the melismas, everything is just amazing. So please go check out that album. Go listen to Volume. He has a song with Ari Lennox. It is phenomenal. So please go check that one out.
And then this week, so I have I use Spotify, not a big Apple Music person, because Spotify, you can also get Hulu if you're a student. So peep that out. I have this thing that's like rotating and like giving me new things. And what came up this week was Our Version of Events. That's the album title, by Amelia Sandy. Did I pronounce it right, Anthony? Okay. Mm-hmm. And then my favorite song of it is Where I Sleep. I think I actually heard it on a TV show. I want to say probably Grey's Anatomy, because, you know, I'll be watching Grey's Anatomy a lot. And I went, found it, listened to the whole album. It's my biggest thing when I listen to albums is I need to be able to go from the beginning to the end and everything makes sense and it flows into each other. If it doesn't, then the album really doesn't make sense to me. And that's just a personal thing. I look at albums like a lot of people look at like Richard Strauss's tone poems. You know what I mean? So, but that's my thing. I'm definitely going to listen to what they suggested because I'm a huge fan of Lana Del Rey. Went to a concert. Love it. She sounds the exact same live, so don't even come at me with that. She does. I have videos. Not really, because that's not legal. Just putting out, I really don't have videos.
But yeah, so later on, I think we're going to actually do an episode about like, you know, pop culture, like music and like albums. It's specifically like the flow and everything. When we do, let us know. Give us some suggestions. Like say, hey, have you listened to this album? Have you listened to this one? We'd love to talk about it. If we haven't, maybe we'll listen to it beforehand. Why not? That'd be cool. But other than that, thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed our continuation of Wagnerism, and stay safe. Remember to vote, and we will see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.